Mr. Jordan Rudess and my very good friend Fluff. Thank you guys so much for being here. And we're here to celebrate the release of the brand new plugin from Positive Grid, Bias X. And Positive Grid asked us if we would be willing to sit down and kind of not necessarily chat about the plugin per se, but just kind of what the world of music is like with all of the technological advances that have graced our musical lives over the past handful of years, and kind of how it's changed the landscape of everything that we do as creative people. And I'm excited to get into it because I'm a giant gear nerd. I love advancements in technology. It's made my life easier in so many ways. But before we get too far in, why don't we kind of go around the circle here and kind of introduce ourselves, let everybody know, for whatever reason, that I think there's a very, very unlikely chance that anybody doesn't know who the two of you are. But for those of you who don't know, I'm Chris Davis. I play guitar in the band The Ghost Inside. I'm also a podcaster and an occasional YouTube content creator. Jordan, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm the keyboardist with the band Dream Theater. Have been for the past 26 years. Happen to be on tour right now in the U.S., running around. And today's a nice day off, so that's always good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm also a technologist. I work with a lot of different companies that are involved in the future of what the kind of things that we're talking about.
Right.
And for the last couple of years, I've been an artist in residence at MIT, working on some very interesting AI stuff. But I always have my hands in the latest synthesizer, expressive kind of controllers, and I'm passionate about it. And I, tend to have a very kind of positive feeling and outlook about technology, and try to stay aware of the bigger picture and how people are feeling and what's going on, at the same time trying to do my part to make the technology more enjoyable for all of us to use.
Totally.
Well, I play guitar for the internet, so I guess I'll just Jesus. Most people know me from my YouTube channel. My name is Ryan Bruce. My friends call me Fluff, and I'm also a mix engineer and producer, and I'm also in the band Dragged Under, and yeah, do all of the things. What a wonderful time to be a musician, right?
Yeah,
With
no
all
joke.
the
Well, I mean, speaking of that, I kind of touched on it a little bit off the top, but technology really has kind of changed how we all do what we do, whether it's out on the road or in the studio or strictly mixing bands or whatever it may be. How would you guys say, like, how has your creative process changed over the years with all the advancements in technology that we now have at our fingertips?
I mean, I would say it's changed everything from the writing level all the way up to tone generation to, I mean, it's really gotten into everything. I mean, I think back to, when I started playing the summer of 94, and you either had your choice of a small PV combo or a Marshall half stack, and maybe there was one or two things in between for guitarists, but the technological side didn't really start to really kick off until, I guess, I don't know, there was always the rack mount stuff, but that was unattainable for a 16-year-old.
Right.
But with line 6 and the pods and the processors and those kind of made it attainable. And so that's when you kind of started writing with your friends more, and you could get these tones that you couldn't otherwise have gotten and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, for me, it's changed actually everything: plugins, processors, how we listen to headphones. Bluetooth headphones sound so good, and the rigs you can carry on your on tour for travel kits is incredibly small now. It's just unbelievable.
Absolutely. Jordan, I'm actually curious how this affects you, being that you are, I guess by trade, a keyboard player, but you also play guitar. So how has the advancements in technology kind of affected you in your creative process?
Well, let's go way back to the 8-bit computers, and when DAW started to come out, and everybody was discovering them, including me. And I had an Atari computer, and it was the first time that I was recording into the computer and playing around with quantization and being able to take what I played and put into the recording from my keyboard and speed it up, quantize it, and do things that we had never really heard before. And from that moment, I kind of had this this relationship with technology where I would use technology to not only inspire me by the sounds that I could create, but also inspire me to kind of try to up my game in what I could do. So when I heard the computer play back my rip and it was perfectly in time and it was fast as lightning, I would say, wow, okay, well, I have a new goal. And so it's always interested me in how we can use technology to kind of empower ourselves to bring up our game, both in the level of creativity that we put out and also in what we can do as human beings. I mean, it even relates to kind of like you look at the new generation of guitar players, for example.
Totally.
Guys play the guitar in ways that they could never do like 30 years ago. And one of the reasons they can do that is because all this technology, whether it's learning technology like Moises, which lets you speed up, slow down, track separate, analyze, all these things, or something like AI, which lets you do things that you've never even dreamed of. It's all, I think, stuff that one could have the perspective and use as ways to make ourselves larger and even more creative.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's the new generation you were talking about with guitar players. I think that it extends even into drummers too. Young drummers who grow up hearing all these records with these quantized, really tight drums and go, "Oh, that's just how drums are supposed to sound. I have to figure out how to play that way." And we have this new generation of, like you said, guitar players, drummers alike, who just have grown up hearing these really polished, tight records and just go, "Oh, well, I guess that's how everybody has to play." And it pushes them, like you were saying, to better themselves and kind of hold themselves to a higher standard. So yeah, I think that's a totally valid reason or a totally a reasonable way to look at it that I think kind of gets overlooked and maybe even shunned sometimes, because I know that, advances in technology, at least in the music world, sometimes can get tinged with like kind of a negative outlook rather than looking at how it can inspire us and be used as a tool to push ourselves.
Sure. And the scary part of it, if we want to go there for a second, is as we discover these new technologies and it kind of, let's say, forces ourselves, whether you're a drummer, a guitarist, keyboard player, to up our game, where's it going?
Right.
Because according to some thinkers that are going forward in 10, 20 years, where does the human being start to become more like the robot? Not only in our desire to like play fast and play accurate and all that, but science is moving on, and pretty soon people will have the option to put little chips in their arms and their brains. I mean, it's just reality, and that's a whole nother podcast. But it's an interesting point because we have a desire to be as large, as great, as amazing as possible, to play faster than everybody else and to play more accurate. So, it's an interesting line there. I mean, I feel kind of lucky that I live right now. I'm not really going to necessarily have the option to be doing too much of that, I don't think, just because of the timeline. But, but that said, I've always used technology in that way, this allowing it to inspire me and kind of like, to hopefully play better and, be more creative.
Do you guys find that when when a new tool or a new plugin, whatever it may be, hits the market, do you find that can be a source of inspiration, of creativity for you? Like, do you ever, for instance, I opened up Bias X and fiddled around with it this morning and kind of found myself getting lost and just noodling around and discovering new sounds. Does finding new tools, new digital stuff that we have at our fingertips, does that kind of help you guys find a new creative outlet?
I think so. I think it depends on what it is. I think there's two sides to those things. There are actual genuinely useful bits of technology, whether that is a piece of hardware or plug-in or whatever, but it's having to wade through and make the effort to wade through the marketing of, because everyone's going to tell you it's the greatest thing ever. Everyone's going to say game changer, but it's up to us as musicians to actually give everything its due diligence to actually see if it's worth it for us and worth our while and time. Because what works for me, it doesn't necessarily work for you, and vice versa, right? So like on my channel, I've never said, well, you shouldn't get this, or this sucks. Like, who am I to tell you what you find creative or as a tool? Like, but I can, if you ask me what I feel in relation to me, sure, I'll tell you. But yeah, so there are incredible things that are coming out even just recently. I'm just like, how is this even real life? Like, this is unbelievable. Like, what a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And also the other thing that's interesting is that, you know, the public, we see what's being marketed to us right now. But when you're a little bit behind the scenes, you know, if I walk through the lab at MIT
Right.
and I'm talking to the guys and I'm watching what they're creating and we're talking about what's going to be happening and working on something for the future, which you don't see. It's
Right.
just, it's truly mind blowing because what we see right now as just musicians, artists, and the public, for those of us who are up to date and know what's going on, it's just like pretty staggering. I mean, I'm looking at some things now that I've got like, you know, terabytes of sample libraries, as an example, terabytes of sample libraries at home, right? That I can call up string sounds, I can call up horns, orchestras, choirs, special effects, everything and anything. Now I'm playing with technology where I could whistle, I could play a toy piano, and then I could type in, I want that to sound like, you know, like the heaviest metal guitar that you've heard in your life. And it'll take my piano riff that I just kind of like punched in and it'll sound incredible. Or like I can play another example is there's some software out there that you can play, let's say a piano line, but you know you want it to be a violin. You want it to end up being a solo violin. We have the option to
Yes.
say, okay, play the piano, and then go and say, okay, I want this to be a violin. And the software takes that line, it understands it musically, and it can do all the articulations that one could do with a sample library if you're extremely virtuosic on that and able to hit all the what they call like, you know, round robins and articulation
Right.
switches and all that. But, you know, it makes you really think, oh my God, I didn't even have to call up my violin sample. And this thing is doing all the switches for me because it knows what I intended by the musical phrase.
Right.
That's
Right.
going to change that like changes everything. And that's right now. I mean, you know, I would say 98% of the people out there don't even know that you can do that now, but you can do that now. So where's it going? Like what? Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yes. Jordan, do you ever play guitar in a live setting, or you strictly just stick to keys live usually?
I'm like a you know, closet guitar player. You know, like I was
Oh,
telling
Jordan, I
somebody,
know better than that. Jordan, I've seen videos of you playing guitar. Come on now.
but you know what? Just to give you some perspective, like I don't even know where in my house a guitar strap is. I sit down with it. It's a real. You could say it's a hobby, but it's a passion because I spend a bunch of time on it. I
Okay.
love it, especially you know, I have my Strandberg guitar, and it's so convenient. It's so portable and ergonomic and light, and I can take it anywhere, and I kind of do take it anywhere. So from that point of view, yeah, I play a lot of guitar for sure. But I don't. No, I haven't played live or anything.
Okay. Okay. Well, then maybe this one in particular specifically, is going to be something more for Fluff, but because I'm curious how you think that these new technological advances have changed the live landscape. Like I know that like digital modeling stuff had been around for a while. People have been touring on it. I know that, for instance, John has been very on the forefront of like using modelers and stuff live with Dream Theater. But now, you know, with how powerful our laptops have gotten and stuff, I think it's also reasonable that we could very much see people even doing away with the physical modelers and going and running plugins live and running automation in their playback sessions and stuff live. I mean, do you think that this is like, that is a future that we could possibly see here?
I think we're there. I know a couple of guys who tour
Really?
with just with laptops. I mean, Steph from the Deftones used to tour. Don't forget with Guitar Rig 5 back in the
Okay,
self-titled
I
days.
didn't know that.
Yeah. But it's interesting that that is actually causing, and I'm not going to say it's like the wrong thing or anything like that. It's just because it's new doesn't mean it's wrong. But when I would have, my band would have meet and greets, and I would have kids come up to me and ask me genuinely, what's it like to play with an actual cab at the volume? Like, what is that like? Because
Yeah.
something like a guitar speaker cabinet is such a luxury and something that they can't have in their bedroom as a 17-year-old. Of course, that makes sense. But what it's also doing is changing an entire generation's playing ability to have that live feedback and to be able to control the guitar and the dynamics at volume on stage, because they don't have that. Everything's gated. Everything is super high gain and saturated, and the dynamics are shifting. They're not going away, but they are shifting. And so I work with young bands all the time. I just got back from a write trip, and like they don't know any of that stuff of what I described, getting the feedback and having the tail of the feedback. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, feedback? We don't want feedback. I'm like, well, no, it can be cool. So it's changing everything.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild to think that I remember when I first started playing shows, the idea of not having an amp with a loud cab on stage, like that wasn't an option. Like I couldn't, there was a point in time where I could never imagine where we are today, and it wasn't that long ago. Yeah. At least I want to believe it wasn't that long ago, because I don't want to feel any older than I already am. But
it's 5 years. It's 5 years.
Yeah. I can totally remember walking on stage at one of my very first Dream Theater shows and going over to John Petrucci's refrigerator racks. I think he had two really tall racks, and one unit was the chorus and one was the flanger,
right?
And that, and this is the echo, and everything had its own rack. And I said to him, literally, this has got to be 26 years ago, John, one day this is all going to be on your computer. And he kind of looked at me like,
he probably thought you were crazy back then.
Yeah, well, he didn't know what I was talking about.
Right.
That's not what didn't even, I don't think he even registered what I was saying, but I kind of like mark that in time, because in my mind, I kind of had the feeling that this is all going to eventually become, part of your computer.
Yeah.
So over the years, I've watched it, shrink down. I mean, John still likes to, have his cabinets. I guess they're Mesa cabinets. Yeah. He still really likes those, and that's what he uses, I think, like all the time. But the rest of it, has gotten a whole lot smaller.
More condensed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he uses like fractal stuff, and that does all the echoes and the flanging and and all that kind of stuff, and the harmonies and everything. So it's still going there. I mean, as we know, I would still look at him and say, okay, well, whatever size it is, it can get smaller if you allow it to. I mean, there's so many guys that are just out there, great bands that just travel. They take their, whatever kind of modeler or software, and they just do it. They'll have to go with that positive grid stuff, and they'll have it on their computer, and they'll play a whole gig, and it'll sound amazing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, to me, I'm very like open to that. And in my guitar life, I mean, that's, pretty much where I'm coming from. I don't have, huge amplifiers or anything. And, I enjoy my software, and I know how to use it. And I think it sounds, amazing. So,
Jordan, I'm curious, as like a lot of guitar players, I mean, I'm absolutely guilty of this. I am often stuck and fighting between my nostalgia brain and my practical brain. And I would love to sit here and say, I only use what sounds the best, which that's actually not true, because I love my clunky old amplifiers that I have. And I love using them when I mix a record, right? But like, obviously that's not the most practical, and the audience doesn't care. Where do you land as far as, because you are on the bleeding edge technology, but do you ever get nostalgic for anything gear-wise, whether it's keyboard, guitar, or anything else?
Well, that's a great question, because I think the more technology that I am involved with, exposed to, that I use, the more I appreciate and kind of resonate with the older stuff. Like a really good example is, I look at, when I'm at home, and I look around the room at all my synths and all the guitars and all the stuff, I kind of have this feeling like my Steinway piano is like my favorite music making instrument in the room. And when I sit at, I mean, it's kind of home base for me, but when I sit there, I don't know, like I was just been thinking about it the last year. Like, I love it so much. It means so much to me that, aside from all the technology that we use, and I love that too. It's awesome. But
Absolutely.
it gives me even more of an appreciation for that, just sitting at the piano. And I'm sure you can relate to that when you plug
Yeah.
in one of your, classic
Yes.
amplifiers, and it's just making the sound in the room, and it's just like, your old friend, and it feels like it feels. You can't change
Yeah.
the feeling of sitting in front of a Steinway grand piano, and the way that
Oh,
the sound enters
It
the
fills
room.
the
It's,
room.
it's
Yeah.
different.
yeah.
There's a feel of vibration on the keys and the wood, and it is a different experience, and I happen to really, really love that, as
Yeah.
well as all the cool stuff we can do with technology. I mean, like one of the things I'm really passionate about is like using technology to advance the level of expression that we can have as musicians. An example being,
Oh, that's
like,
great.
in the keyboard world, a great example is something like this keyboard that's called the Osmos keyboard, that's made by
Mhm.
Expressive in France. Because what it does is it offers different kinds of gestures that you can do with your
Oh,
hands
wow.
on the
What?
keys that you haven't been able to do before. Like, you can play a key, and instead of having to hit the key to the bottom and, like, have a hammer hit a string, or press the key to the bottom and have it hit a touch a contact to make the synthesizer sound, this is able to see your touch right from the beginning of the throw to the end. So you could do a
Whoa.
crescendo. You could do a crescendo right at the beginning. As soon as you touch it, it can sense it, and then you can literally do a volume swell on the key, and every key is completely individual as well. So it
Right.
offers that, and then also, like a guitar, you can take the key and you can move it from side to
Bend.
side.
Wow.
And like, some people will go, "Oh, that seems like crazy," because then all the notes are going to bend around. But the way that they designed it, you can play it normally, and it's not necessarily going to bend, unless you. I mean, it takes a bit of technique, but you kind of would intend to shake your finger on the key, and then it would do it. And there's other stuff about it too. And so the fact that they figured out this kind of organic way to use technology to offer another level of expression to, in this case, a keyboard player, that to me is incredible. That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I play in drop D. Okay, so that's
Yeah, man.
Bar
that's
chords
what you're
only.
doing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get nostalgic for the old gear too, right? Like, I was so staunchly non-digital for so long.
Yes, you were.
Until one day I woke up and I was like, wait a minute, I can do all of this and take my tone with me everywhere in something this big. That's
What's our
so much
freight
more
bill?
convenient.
Wait a second.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
incredible.
And so I've become of the mindset of every tool serves its purpose in its right time, and there's no right or wrong way. And I think that the other side of it too is that without the old analog stuff, we don't have these new tools. It's all based on
There.
these old things, and so it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. There's a time and place for all of it. Still, I still fully think that analog amps like you have sitting in the corner, Fluff. I still think that there's perfectly a time and place for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I think that like, I agree with that. And I think one of the beautiful things about all the digital technology is the idea that we can come up with sounds that we haven't heard before.
Totally.
I mean, yeah, we can emulate. Guys are taking their, their
course.
one little thing, and they're getting the sounds they need to play whatever kind of rock gig, or, all the different styles. But for me, what the magic of it all is the fact that you could create a tone that you haven't been able to create before. And now you could even, with AI, you could even prompt that tone. You could even say, I want a distorted tone that has sustain, but I want it to really emphasize the second harmonic, and I want it to have this speed of an echo, and I also want it to be backwards, and fill in the blank. I mean, you can really do anything. And that part of AI, as related to guitar players, especially, I think is really cool, because a lot of people are really, really sensitive about AI because of all the obvious reasons. Maybe they feel it's going to replace their jobs, or it's going to destroy the world. But if you're a guitar player and you have positive grid, the bias X software, you have a little Go amplifier on the road, and you can quickly kind of describe the sound that you want and get choices that fit that description. It's hard to say no to that. It's kind of like, oh
Right.
my God, if you didn't tell people the dreaded AI word and you just gave them that ability and say, oh, this is what you could do now.
Right.
You wouldn't hear, a peep about it, really. So when things fit that
Yeah.
need, when it really works for somebody, then it just works. And it's a beautiful thing. Like, Moises and the track separation that they are able to do. And they've got 50 million users, and everybody is like taking apart, whatever track they want and slowing it down and speeding it up and seeing the chord. I don't hear a lot of people complaining about that because it really, really functions for them as an educational tool, learning tool. Do you want to tell them that it's AI? I mean, you can't not tell them.
Right.
But it is AI. I'm sorry to be the bearer of harsh news. That whole technology is based on AI. And sure, some people will say, well, you shouldn't be able to take apart tracks because unless the artist wants you to, blah, 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 blah. But that tool is amazing. And I don't know about you guys, but we're all using it like all the time.
I've absolutely used it. I just used it 2 days ago. I think it's a very unique tool for education, exactly like you said.
I had to do some kind of broadcast, and I wanted to do it from the the truck that we go on to, the huge vehicle. And I was inside the truck, and I was all ready to do it. And then they were checking the drum. They were doing a line check and checking the drums. So I kind of had to do this, and I did my little thing, and I said what I needed to say. And at the end, I thought, no, that's too bad. It's got all these like drums in the distance. And then I used Moises to take out the drums later on, and it was perfect. I was like, wow. Never thought of that.
That's pretty genius.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a cool use of that.
Fluff and I were talking just before you hopped on the call about how, we were specifically talking about both of us testing out Bias X and how cool it is, specifically the AI feature in it. And well, I guess now is as good a time as any to kind of open up the plugin and show you what's going on in here. So I have this pulled up in the standalone version right now, but if you pull it up in your DAW, it's going to look very much the same as this. And the first thing you're going to notice is that the user interface is very, it looks great and it looks very intuitive, especially if you've used any sort of modeling before. You're going to recognize this kind of row-based signal chain building kind of thing here. And, it's really, really, really intuitive if you want to build anything out from scratch yourself. You can go through your presets over here. You've got basic, experimental, AI inspired, factory, user, all that. Or you could go from scratch yourself and come over here to gear and say I wanted to make this a more high gain kind of thing, because that's my thing. I'm all about the high gain stuff. So I'm gonna right click on the amp. I'm gonna hit replace. And then I'm going to come down to our high gain options, and I'm a 5150 guy, so I'm going to click this Insanity 3, and then I want to change this to a Mesa cab because that is my cab of choice. So I'm going to right click, hit replace, and then I'm going to come down to the California 30. That is the Mesa cab. And then maybe, classic move, maybe I want to put a tube screamer in front. So let's go distortion, drag that in front. And just like that, I've built out a pretty standard high gain signal chain in a matter of seconds. It's super intuitive. You don't really have to think too much about it. Everything's exactly where you would think it would be, and you can build out, swap stuff out really, really, really fast. And on top of that, they've revamped their entire sound engine. So everything sounds and feels incredible. I'm actually genuinely impressed with how good it sounds. I used their old Bias plugin back in the day, and it was pretty awesome for, especially considering that what other options were on the market back then. But this is like leaps and bounds improved from the original Bias plugin. But where this starts to get really awesome is when you come down here and we go to the AI feature that we were discussing. You're just going to click this little symbol down here, and down here in this prompt, you can type in anything you want. So let's say, for instance, build a modern high gain rhythm, if I could spell, rhythm tone. Something you can get as detailed as you want, but let's just see what it builds us on this, because I have a feeling that this will get pretty close off that. So we'll let it think for a second. Okay, so it tells us we're trying to achieve a modern high gain rhythm tone. And we're going to click this little link right here, and it's going to pull it up. Now, here's something cool. I can now go in and I can tweak these settings that it put here for me. You know, I could change this to whatever I want, or I could say, I actually prefer 5150 type tones over rectifiers. Can you rebuild this with that in mind? Let's just see what it does with that. So like I said, you can have the AI helper build you a signal chain, and you can tweak it yourself, or you can then prompt it to make some changes for you as well to better fit your preferences. And my understanding is the more that you do this, the more that you work with it, the more information about your preferences that you give the AI, the more accurately it's going to nail these things that you're requesting of it on the first try. So there we go. It built the same tone, or it built a similar tone, now using a 5150 style amp. And this goes even further to the point that you could even pull an audio file into here. So if I go into my desktop, I have an audio WAV file here. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to give it a second to think. And this is really crazy. And I think that this is really going to be cool for people trying to figure out how to build tones like the ones on their favorite records, or the records that inspire them, or whatever. You know, when I was starting out, I didn't know how to do any of this. I didn't even know where to try to begin. So being able to drag something in an audio clip, this is a full mix at that too, and to have it be able to pull stuff out, that's crazy. So now it's asking me what section of the song I want to pull, and let's just go with the intro guitars, and let's see what it does. And it's giving me a couple options here of presets that could get us close to the sound of what's in that section of the song. And this is crazy. Just like in a couple seconds, it analyzed the audio that I gave it, and it spit out a few different options for me that I can try out. And you could even prompt it with something that's not a specific sound. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you could type in a mood or a vibe you're looking for. Something like, build me a tone that sounds like a rainy summer afternoon. I have no clue what this is going to do, but let's just see what it gives us. To evoke the feeling of a rainy summer afternoon, the tone should be clean and warm with gentle ambience, shimmering highs, and subtle modulation to suggest rain. Let's see what it does. So we've got a comp, some modulation, got a clean amp and cab here, going into some delay and some reverb. I mean, that's wild. That's wild. You know, sometimes you just don't know exactly what you're looking for. If the option to just type in, this is the emotion, this is the vibe, this is the feeling I'm trying to capture, and prompting it into that and letting this send you in the right direction to give you a starting place so that you can just be creative, that's invaluable. When I was just starting out with audio work, when really all I was trying to do was just demo my own songs as a teenager, I didn't know what I was doing. If I could have shortened that learning curve into figuring out how to get an inspiring guitar tone, and I could have just typed something in like, build me a signal chain that would get me close to the guitar tone on the Black Album or something like that when I was first learning, that would have blown my mind, and it would have been absolutely groundbreaking for me. And I think that it's going to be that way for a lot of younger musicians who are trying to figure their way, really anybody, but specifically people who are trying to figure out how they don't want the barrier of being creative. They don't want to spend too much time turning knobs. They just want to sit down and play. Like that's a game changer to just be like, I need something that sounds like XYZ. You type it in and it's up and you're ready to go right away. Like that's a crazy feature to have inside of a plugin at your fingertips, ready to go anytime.
Yeah, time is the most valuable thing we all have. And if something is going to come along that saves us time in this world of go faster, faster, now, then like, okay, if I'm in a write session with a band that's standing over my shoulder going, I really need this kind of tone to do this lead thing over the vocal, and I can just type that in.
Yep.
It's pretty sick. That's pretty cool. Instead of give me 5, go and make a cup of coffee while I try to figure out a tone so you can track along to, like.
Totally. And I don't know if you guys are like this too, but because I am a tweaker audio dork guy, if I have to sit Well, I shouldn't say if I have to, because I do it even though I shouldn't. But if I have an idea and I want to sit down and record the idea in, if the sound isn't right away, I will spend so much time messing with the sound that I lose all flow of the idea, the musical idea that was in my head. Like if the less friction I have from sitting down, plugging my guitar in and playing to actually being able to have something sound cool, like the less barrier there is there, the more likely I am to actually get my idea out in a way that I actually intend.
Interesting.
Totally. I completely understand that. And I think that I would say everybody feels that way. But then we reach this interesting point, which is, which brings up a lot of almost like flags, because I don't think we should not talk about the Suno and the Udio and the Refusion and all these amazing software companies that are changing everything about the way our business works and the way people are creating music. Example being, you go to Udio and you type in, I want to have a heavy metal song and I want it to be mysterious and with the EDM and a little bit of Indian ethnic style, and you hit go. And next thing you know, you hear this thing that sounds like what you typed in, and you go,
right.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. Or it's your mother, daughter, wife's cousin's birthday, and you put in some words like, my cousin loves to play chess and he likes to ride his bicycle, and his wife's name is Jan, and make a funny song using those things. Okay, generate the lyrics. Great. And I like that. Put those lyrics in, or maybe you can do this in some of those applications. Okay, have my lyrics. Now I type my prompt of what kind of song I want it to be. Go. And then it does it, and you send it to the person, and they smile, and they go, oh my God, they just created a song about me. And of course, the person on the receiving end probably has no idea how that's done. But meanwhile, okay, I don't think there's any argument that in that case, the receiver would have a big smile and go, wow. And as a musician, I feel like, wow, there's no way in hell that on the day of somebody's birthday or in my busy life, I'm going to be able to make a whole big production for my friend who's having a birthday.
Right.
So it's almost, excuse me to all the people who are listening to this and kind of be upset with me, but it's almost impossible to say that that's from some points of view, a bad thing, because it made somebody smile. You created something. Everybody got excited about this thing. But I will say, as a creator, somebody who's been, started playing classical piano when they were 7 years old, been playing for 61 years, that I think what really has value is when we, as musicians and creators, when we put ourselves behind it and we're really involved in the creative flow, however that happens. If I do create a song for my cousin and make it a big band, progressive rock, multimeter thing and send it to him and it's cool, great. I might smile. That's great. He'll smile. But I might forget about it in a few hours because I only spent 30 seconds doing it or whatever, 10 minutes, or who knows. But if I crafted something, no matter how I crafted it, if I crafted it and I spent the time and I invested and I supervised the vision of what my artistic sensibilities were and what I really wanted to create and what was coming from me, that would mean a whole lot more. So I don't want to take away the pleasure that somebody has when they're, not a musician, let's say, or even if they are, and they're making music however the hell they want to make it. But I will say, and I think it's undeniable, that if you don't spend a whole lot of time on something, if you just generate go, what does that really mean? Not nearly as much as if you spend the time, you have a vision, you have an artistic vision, you have a statement, and you put yourself behind it using whatever tool, I don't care what tools or how you do it, that means a whole lot more.
So you are going to start a birthday song request service? Is that what you're saying?
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
If we could put the website on the...
link down below in the description, guys.
Yep, URL. Yep, absolutely.
Right.
We got you covered.
When it's your birthday, I'll send you something. Just tell me what
right.
you'd like to hear.
This is great.
Amazing.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, Jordan, I mean, clearly based on what you've been saying, and I know from watching a few other interviews that you've done, but you are actually, you have a very positive outlook on AI's, how it can play actually a positive role in music and the creative world in general. Fluff, what's your like general outlook on all of that?
I think if you don't, you're going to get left behind if you don't get with it to some extent. I understand musicians' trepidation of, oh, I'm going to push a button, like the malicious and stuff aside. Of
Right.
course, I don't agree with any of that stuff. But, I was in a write session and I really needed a lo-fi drum beat for a specific break in a song. And I don't know how to create that on the spot. And I was able to use an AI plugin and I beatboxed it myself. I created that beat and I had it basically turn the performance into that exact break that I wanted. And it took me 3 minutes.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
And not to forget, and I'm happy to hear that, but not to forget that, what was it, 30 years ago or more, they were releasing like CDs of like drummer loops and things like that, and different musicians. I remember going to a friend of mine's studio years ago, had to be 30 years ago, and listening to something that he had just produced and recorded and thinking, oh my God, and I said to him, that sounds so great. I love the drums. That sounds awesome. And he was like, oh yeah, great, thanks. And then I didn't want to leave it at that. I was interested in how they were recorded and what happened. I said, I started asking questions until I found out that the drums were from and I didn't know anything about this. The drums were from somebody's like CD that they put out of drum loops.
Samples.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That was the whole thing, right? Where you could buy like, the Rod Morgenstein drum loops, or whatever drummer. A lot of the guys would do that. They would go in the studio, they record 8 bars, 16 bars, 32 bars. They'd put them all on a CD, and then as creators, we could just use those recordings. It was fair game. Nobody complained. I mean, maybe some people would have issue with that, but that is what happened 30 years ago. So, so the fact that you're, like you're in the studio and you're going into a mic, and it's coming from, the idea is coming from you, and you're using some AI to turn that into whatever, drum percussion sound you want. That's kind of cooler. That I like that. Right. I like that a whole lot better. So if you're going to use like AI and you are like putting out that kind of creative energy, whether it's playing a toy piano and playing the riff and turning it into the world's greatest guitar sound, or using your mouth and making some kind of a cool drum sound and then turning that. And I think that there is a pretty cool connection, because you're putting yourself into it, in some way. It's all very, controversial stuff. And,
totally.
And of course, the whole legal side, like, a lot of that is very, a lot of that needs to be figured out for sure.
Absolutely.
And changing every day. Because there's definitely some issues. Like, like if the world is swamped with people who are uploading their, AI songs that they prompted in 2 seconds to, Spotify or Apple Music. I mean, what does that do for all of us who are trying to put out like albums? It just, the market was already flooded, so now all of a sudden, oh my God, how do I even get heard? Because you don't know if your competition is like a robot, or if it's, there's a lot of issues there.
Yeah, I mean, that is really, at the end of the day, what a lot of the controversy is the malicious use of these AI technologies. But I think Fluff actually just explained a really great use of these tools we have. Where do you see AI being most helpful for people in a way that doesn't like step on the human nature of creating music? Like I said, if Fluff just explained that he was able to beatbox in this drum loop and then have a plugin turn it into an actual drum loop for him. But like, what other ways do you see AI kind of being helpful to creatives?
Well, I think that it's, an incredible idea generator, for one. I mean, one could get their final tracks off of like some of the STEM generation tools that are there now. And it can give you some really, really great ideas. I mean, the AI can really function like that. You can try, like, what would your like metal guitar parts sound like with some kind of a hip hop beat to it, or
Right.
with tablets, you know.
We're gonna find out, aren't we, Chris?
Yeah, sure are.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna find out. I mean, the most interesting things one can do with AI now is those kind of like stylistic creation things where you
Yeah.
go in and you say, "I want heavy metal mixed with Tibetan chanting and this and that," and then you all of a sudden you go, "Oh my god!" Like that's cool. Like I was generating some stuff with, I was saying like progressive rock, metal, big band, brass,
Ooh.
and all of a sudden you're hearing like a Glenn Miller orchestra playing like in 13/8 and stuff, and I'm going,
So wild.
this is really crazy because because some people say you could never invent anything new with AI, and I'm kind of like, I don't know about that.
Right.
When you're listening to the big band thing in 13/8, you kind of go, well, maybe you can.
That's crazy.
This
That's
opens
crazy.
up, just opening up new ideas,
Yeah.
more creativity. Like I think that's a lot of what it should be about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I should say, just because I'm talking, I'm sorry if I'm talking so much.
No, you're
but
good.
I'm excited about this, and I want to say to people, like, for me, the whole AI thing has increased my creativity. It hasn't diminished it at all. I wake up every day and I'm like, oh my god, what can I do now? What kind of riff can I create? What can I put in and have it generate? And my mind is like, it's spinning with all these creative ideas. At the same time, I'm practicing my instruments more than ever too, because that's about valuable to me. So
I just wanted to do my laundry. That's all I want.
Hey,
AI,
it gets
do my
to that
laundry.
point, and
me
I'm
too,
all in.
Me too.
I'm all in.
Totally.
Well, as we start to kind of wind down here and wrap up, I kind of want to know what excites you most about where music technology is heading currently. Because, like, for me, it's been really fun to see the barrier to entry get easier, because I feel like it all it's really doing in my mind is making it easier for people to create, to get their ideas out. And I think that that's great. I think a lot of people, maybe a little bit more of the old school audio guys kind of I don't know if they find it threatening or what it is, but they don't really love it. But I actually love that, like, the barrier to getting great sounds and the barrier to getting your ideas into a computer or whatever and then released out to the world. The less it takes to get all of that there, I think that that's awesome. And I think that these advances in technology are really helping us get to that point. So it's, for me, anytime something like I've said a couple times now, Bias X comes out, where I can just type in, I need this guitar tone, and it happens quick like that. I can get my idea in and I can send it off to somebody or release it to the world. Like, that to me is great. I think that anything that lowers that barrier to entry on creativity is awesome. So I'm curious what you guys are most excited about with, the next step in music technology.
Same for me. I was going to say barrier to entry, and the cost of everything it's just plummeting, right? 'Cause remember back in the day, a processor in the 90s, when I would look at a processor, was thousands of dollars for an Eventide harmonizer or whatever it was. Like, those were just untouchable back in the day. Now it's on your phone.
Yep. That's so crazy.
And if we think about it, even from like, the point of view of like a piano or a guitar, I mean, the barrier to entry. If I go sit down at my piano, I don't have to turn anything on. I sit down, I can open the lid. If it's closed, I'll sit down and I start to play.
Right.
And I don't have to adjust the volume. I don't have to play with anything. I'm just making music. So to me, that's like the quickest way to get my music out of me and into the space. And anything that's beyond that, anything you like, if I go over to my synthesizer and I have to turn it on and wait for it to turn on while it loads its software and, deal with the mixer and all this, those are all things that block the creative process.
Right.
Like if you guys pick up your acoustic guitar, and there's definitely a place for that where you're going to really love to do that, because you don't want to deal with plugging the thing in. Right. You don't want to deal with get the amp down. You just don't want to deal with it. You just want to make music. So that whole idea of of getting rid of those barriers is a beautiful thing. And I think that's part of what's really beautiful about the AI. And certainly in terms of all the guitar players who are watching this, nobody's going to not be really excited about being able to type in or to express the signal chain you want in words and then have it happen, because it'll get you there so much quicker. So yeah, I mean, that kind of thing just excites me as well. And also, as I mentioned, the whole expression thing, that you can, our touch, our thoughts, everything about who we are as human beings become closer and more tied in with technology, so we can make, better music. We could talk about this stuff like all day.
Oh yeah.
Because it's such an intense and heated topic, and we know we're going to get a lot of comments about it from all sides. But yeah, no, it's all cool. But I travel around. I got my little Positive Grid Go amp, and it sounds amazing. And you can it's got AI on it. Now that's an example of technology that just makes me really, really happy. So it's small. Yeah. It sounds amazing. The AI just makes it cooler.
Yeah, I remember when my guitar tech got one for his work box this summer for our Euro Festival circuit, and he was like, "Hey, there's AI on this. Check it out. Like, just type anything in." And I typed in like, "Give me a modern metal guitar tone, tight, all that stuff." I plugged my in-ears into it. I was like, "Wow!" Like, it actually did the thing that I asked it to do. It was pretty impressive.
And not to mention these things, right? These headphones that they came out with, which are incredible. I don't know if a lot of people know about these headphones, which you just, you plug a little transmitter into your guitar, you throw these Positive Grid headphones in your head, and your guitar sounds incredible, and you're not disturbing anybody.
It really is an awesome time to be a musician and a guitar player.
This little thing, I just keep them in my bag, and I'm a happy, guitar player.
Yeah. Well, but before we get out of here, one last thing for any guitar players or musicians that may be watching this right now. Do you guys have any advice for anyone out there who's trying to like navigate their way through all of these new tools we have at our fingertips, but maybe not getting lost in the sauce? Because we have a lot of new toys, shiny things for people to try out there. And it's real easy to just get lost in trying new things and playing with stuff. How do you just stay creative while using these tools to their full capabilities?
I don't know. I'll let you know though.
You got to figure it out too. Okay, so I'm not alone in this. Okay, that makes me feel better then. That question was more for me than it was for anyone else.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I always use it supplementally, I guess, because I still go straight to my old amps. Like Jordan does his piano. Like that's where I start. But I think that's not a hang up of mine. It's just what I'm used to because of where I come from. I would love to know the younger folks, imagine starting out right now and that's all your creative process is entering an AI prompt, right? Like,
absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting world for sure.
You know what? As controversial as a topic as it may be, I'm excited to see where, this younger generation goes with all this stuff.
Me too. Yeah, it's a great tool.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and chatting on all this and sharing your perspective on all of it. I think it's all super exciting. And it's really just awesome that we have all of these really cool creative tools just ready for anybody to use at any time, anywhere now. It's a really exciting future for us creative types out here. So I thank you guys for being here, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is great.